quite finished, but I know that several of us did get to that point, and so we are going to work really hard on those paragraphs today. So let me go to my spot here. All right, uh-oh, I got to get out of that for just a second. All right, so here we go. Overcoming learning challenges near and far. Guys, we're working really hard on this. You're now experts about some challenges in different places of the world, and you are sharing those details with your reader. You are writers of informational text. You've decided what the important information to give to your reader is, and you have formed a paragraph that gives that most important information about what the challenge is in that place and how it is overcome. Today we are going to be doing, so today is the day that we kind of look at our work and we see what can we do to improve it. And Mrs. Hobbin and I know this is one of the hardest things for kids to do, because it's called revising. And it's super hard because we all, and I'll tell you, my kids at home have the same problem. In fact, even sometimes I as an adult have this problem. I like how I like it and I think it's just fine. My kids at home think this often. And guys, but we can always work on something and improve it. You know, authors write books and sometimes they revise their books. And we're talking just about revising. So today we're not really focusing on editing. That's the capitalization and the spelling and all that stuff. Today is the organization and how the words are put so that they're clear. And that revising, sometimes when you're an author, a real author of a book, sometimes they do it like 50 times. And I'm not kidding. Like they send it to the editor and the editor says, you know, great, but I think you need to work on chapter 6, and they have to work on chapter 6, and then they work on chapter 6 for maybe a couple of weeks, and they send it back to the editor, and the editor's like, that's definitely improvement, but I still need you to work on it. So even professional writers have to revise. They have to work on their writing to improve it, because the idea is that what you want to give, what you want to present to the reader is your best possible writing. And we have not gotten to the point where we have our best possible writing now. So right now we're going to watch a little video about a little boy named Austin. And in that video, you're going to see the video itself is not about writing, but it is about revising and listening to others and what they have to give you as criticism or critique, as we call it, some ways that you can improve. And so it's about a 6-minute video. We're going to watch it through once, so I really need your focus. And here we go. If you've been, yep, yeah, but you know what? It's good to watch again because it reminds you about how to improve. Why is that actually playing? There we go. Oh, all of our voices should be off.
What do you guys say to teachers if they're not getting high quality work? Did they learn something from this, and what would you say to them that they could do differently in the classroom?
This is a story called Austin's Butterfly, and it's a true story about a first grade boy, and his name is Austin, and he goes to school, or used to go to school, in a town called Boise, Idaho. And in his class in Boise, Idaho, they were studying butterflies, and he had to do a project. His job in first grade was to draw a butterfly, and this is the butterfly that he picked. Austin had to use this photograph as his model, and he had to draw an accurate scientific drawing of this butterfly. This is called a tiger swallowtail.
I knew
it. Can you tell, Toby, why it's called tiger?
Because it kind of has the stripes of the tiger right there.
Good. So here was Austin's job. He was supposed to do a scientific drawing of that butterfly. But remember, Austin was only in first grade. And you know what he did? He forgot to look like a scientist carefully. He got his paper and he just started to draw the image of a butterfly that he had in his head. And he wasn't looking like a scientist. And so this is what he drew. It's not bad, and it is a butterfly. But does it look exactly like this? No, it doesn't yet. It doesn't look exactly like this yet. And so they didn't look at this and say, good, Austin, you're done. They said, Austin, good start. Now we can start giving you critique so you can do a second draft and make it better, and a third draft and make it better, and you can make it much, much closer to this, and he was ready to go. All of the first graders in his critique group sat on the floor like you guys are, and they decided to split their advice into two kinds. First, just the shape of the wings. And then when the shape was right, they'd give him advice about the pattern inside the wings. Alia, what would you say?
You can make it much pointier.
Good. These wings could be much pointier. Who else would add something? Attack, what would you say?
About the angle, because not to be mean about
Yes.
the angle, it's just not exact. So
Okay, so show me. Come on up here, Todd. Show me what you would ask him to do slightly differently.
like to make it a little longer,
Longer where? Draw where you would do it.
right there.
Okay, so pull this out longer.
Yeah.
That's very specific, Attack. Thank you. Jamila, what would you say?
It's like
Just for a second, what word did he just use? Specific, right? Very particular language. He didn't just say, make the big wing bigger. He said specifically how to do it. That's gonna come in really handy when we are helping each other today with feedback. We wanna be specific. We wanna give a detailed something to improve. Not just say, a general thing like the wing, do the wing better. That's not gonna help him very much, is it? So making specific sort of statements.
triangle.
Good. Jamila, I love that. So you're saying more like a triangle shape. And I agree. Well, you know what? Those first graders came up with most of those same ideas. And you know what Austin said? He said, okay, I'll come try. And he went back to his seat and he drew this. Does this look more like a triangle? Yeah. Did he go out further, like Atak was suggesting?
Yeah.
Did he add some jaggedness here?
Yeah.
Like Cindy, did he get rid of that bottom thing?
Yeah.
So he did listen to his friends and he made it better. It's not perfect. Toby, what would you say?
I'd say don't put those little tail things so pointed in. I'd say put them more pointed down.
Good. Okay, Ethan, what would you say?
I think you should make the wings like this, not like just.
Okay, he listened to his friends and they said, this is really a lot better, Austin. That second draft really is better. Good, maybe he could make a third draft. And so he did this draft.
That's the third draft.
That's his third draft, Hadley. That's just right. Elijah, what do you notice there?
Well, one wing's more pointed than the other, and that side is a little bit higher.
Good. Coburn?
Right here, it doesn't have the inside thing still.
Ah, okay. Needs a little bit more of that notch. So do you think maybe he should do a fourth draft?
Yeah.
Well, that's just what he said. He said, shoot, okay, I got round again. I'll go back and do a fourth draft. He listened. Does it look more even like Elijah was suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, and does it look like it's coming out a little sharper, like Cindy was suggesting? And like Attack was saying, it's the angle looks a little better. So now Austin was feeling really good. He said, am I ready to add some pattern? And they said, okay, why don't you try adding some of the pattern? And he did.
He's good at it.
He is so good.
And then they said, Austin, you're ready for color. Let's look at his last draft. And what do you think? Did it come out really good?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about how much progress he made? Attack, what would you say about his progress?
He made like a lot of progress. He persevered doing it. His friends were honest with him.
What was it about the kinds of advice that they gave that allowed him to get better each time? Hassan?
Well, they told him what was wrong about it.
Did they say it's just wrong, or were they more specific?
They were more specific, but they weren't mean about it.
Great. Hadley.
Made 6 drafts.
And so is that something that other kids should learn from? What should we learn from that?
You can make other drafts if it's not right.
Good. So if it's not right, you can keep doing more drafts to make it better.
You just don't use things in your head. You want to use sharp eye.
Good. He used the eyes of a scientist. Great.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. So let's think about this for a moment. Okay, what kind of advice did the other students give that allowed Austin to get better with each draft? What kind of advice? Let's go back, because they sort of went over this in the video. But what advice did his friends give him? Marin?
They gave him, like on one of them, one of his friends said that he should point like make the angle
Okay.
more like the real butterfly.
Okay, so they gave a suggestion, and it was a specific suggestion, right? Okay, good. What else, Miss Ellie? Okay, so again, they made some suggestions. Okay, excellent. Haley, what else did they do?
They were specific about it, and they weren't like mean, and like they actually told him until he got better and better.
Okay,
And then finally, when he added the pattern, they told him that he was good.
okay. So they were honest with him, right? If his friends had started with that first picture and his friends had just said, oh, it's great, would he still end up having that first picture as his final draft? Maybe.
No.
If they just said it looks great and they didn't give him any honest criticism, honest critique, would he have necessarily gotten better? No. So when we are doing peer critiques today, that's something that we can learn from these first graders, is that by giving honest but yet kind, because obviously he did 6 of these, so he persevered. So each time someone else had to give him some advice, some suggestions, some honest feedback that was specific. If his friend, so one of the things that we often do to with our friends is we often just tell our friend, oh, that's great, that's fine. And if you do that, is that going to help them improve? No. And sometimes we just don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. We just want to say that's fine because they're our friend and we don't want them to feel bad. But are we really doing them a favor by doing that? By telling them it's just fine and you don't have to improve anymore? No, that's not really being a good friend, because that's not really helping them get better and improve. And when we wrote our writing yesterday and Friday, what we called it was a draft. And we talked about what is a draft is something that is a stage of our, eventually we'll have something called a final draft. But until the final draft, we will have a series of different sort of things. He had a first draft, a second draft, a third draft, a fourth draft, a fifth draft, and a sixth draft. He had 6 different versions of his best work. Now this obviously is a picture versus this is, you know, his picture of a butterfly. We have writing. So we're going to have to look at it a slightly different way, but we can use all of those things to help us with our learning targets today. So today, our first learning target is I can give kind, helpful, and specific feedback to my partner. Okay, and it is our job today to do that. You can't just say, you know, oh, it looks great, it's fine. You need to give that feedback, and you need to be specific about exactly what needs to be helpful. And it can't just be, you can't just, you know, say, oh, it's all wrong. That's not going to help them either, is it? Because it has to be helpful. And we also want to use our kind words. We want to treat others like we want to be treated, right? And so we would want kind words and things said in a nice way that it makes us feel like I can improve. If they had just told Austin, that's a horrible butterfly, he might not have gotten past that first stage, because his self-esteem would be like, well, I can't draw. But they didn't do that. They gave him ways to improve, not just shut him down and say that's not great in the first place, because of course it's not. He's a first grader, and second, and you know, it's something new for him, and he had to have time to improve. We're third graders. We're writing paragraphs. It's new to us, and we're going to get better. We just need to work on them, right? So my second learning target is I can critique. So that's when we use that feedback and we're helpful and we're kind, it's called critique. The organization in my partner's informative paragraph. So organization, we're not going to worry about spelling today. We're not going to worry about periods and, and capitals. We are going to focus on how your paragraph is organized, okay? And how the words are put together that sound clear for your partner to be able to, for the reader to understand. So a critique is just another way to say all of these things up here. So when you see that fancy word critique, it just means to give that feedback. So here are some things to help us understand exactly what we have to do today. So being kind, well, what does it mean? It obviously means treating the other person with respect and dignity and how we would want to be treated. It means you have to do something. You have to listen. A partner isn't just all about talking. The partner is also about listening, because you have to really listen carefully to understand what your partner is trying to say. And if you're not listening carefully, then are you going to be able to give good feedback? No. So it might sound like, I like the way you have written your introductory sentence. It might be, so should you give them a good, something that they did well, as well as something they should work on? Yes. How about if everybody just tells you what you did wrong, does that feel good? So is it also helpful if somebody tells you what you did right, as well as what you could work on? Yes. Remember how Austin had he had his butterfly, and they said, well, that's definitely a butterfly. We can tell it's a butterfly. However, these other things need to happen. So be specific. Focus on certain things. Don't just say, oh, well, it's too long. Well, is that going to help them? No. Are you say, oh, your paragraph's way too short? No. You need to be more specific about what it is that they need to add, what it is that maybe is a little too wordy. So using the criteria, you have to identify the parts that they did well and the parts that they can improve on. We all know there is the red introductory sentence, the focus statements, the challenge, how they overcome, and the conclusion. There are 5 parts to our paragraph. Can you help them with some of those parts today? Definitely, yes. You have to be helpful. You have to contribute. You cannot be a partner and let your partner do all the work. If I'm a partner with Haley, she's going to read me her paragraph and I'm going to help her, and then it's going to be my turn to read my paragraph and she has to help me. You can't just get all the good help and then not be willing to give it, because this is a partnership. You both have to contribute. You definitely have to help that partner find that spot. And sometimes that means you really have to persevere and figure out how to help, how to give them some good feedback. Participate. Both people need to participate. You need to listen carefully, and then you need to make sure that if you don't understand something, what should you do? Ask questions, right? If you couldn't hear something well, if I'm August's partner and I couldn't hear him say his paragraph at the beginning of his paragraph very well, could I stop him and say, August, I know it's a little loud in here, but could you read that first sentence again? Can you do that? Is that going to be helpful to both of you?
Yes.
Yes. So make sure that you participate from the beginning to the end, both things. All right, so keeping those in mind, remember also, we are ethical people. We're going to be respectful. We're going to make sure we give them the respect we would expect. Integrity. Integrity is doing things that are hard. First of all, it's hard to sometimes tell people the truth. And sometimes it's hard to hear the truth. So say Lucas is telling me that I really messed up in the body of my paragraph. My challenge and my ways that I overcome them aren't great. And he's just being honest, he's being kind, and I get all huffy. But I tried, Lucas, I tried. Is that going to help anybody either? No. So the integrity part is both sides. It's going to be hard for Lucas to tell me the truth, and it's got to be sometimes hard for me to hear the truth. But I'm not going to take it personally because he said it kindly. But I thought I did a good job. I thought I did. But I have to realize, what's the whole point of this? To improve, right? Nobody in this room is a perfect writer yet. Yet being the word, right? We're all like Austin. Austin couldn't draw that butterfly immediately perfectly. He had to work at it. If he drew, and all of a sudden, if we told him to draw a frog, would he be immediately able to draw a frog? Maybe not, because he would need to go through that process of learning how to draw that frog. Empathy. You got to imagine when Lucas is telling me how he wants me to improve, he has to be empathetic and say it in a way that's not going to hurt my feelings, right? Because he can imagine how that might feel when he tells that to me. He's got to be honest, though. It's got to be part of the truth. And compassion. If I get a little sad, how could Lucas show me some compassion today? And if he thinks about I'm sad, could he give me some encouraging words?
Yeah.
Could he try to make me feel better? Yes. So we're going to use all of our ethical people skills today. This is all of them all at once. Okay, so today in our informational text, and this I realize is super, if you're at home, you could probably read it necessarily, but I want to go ahead and exit for a second and just look at the actual page. So on page 36 in your workbook, you don't actually have to turn to it because I'm just going to show you here, but we are going to focus on a certain part of our work here. Sorry, it's taking a while to open. So we're going to focus right here on this today. Remember, we're not worrying about spelling. We're not worrying about capitals and periods and those kind of things. Oh, I lost some eyeballs. Need everybody to look up here and see this section right here. I'm going to make it nice and big so everybody can see it, because this is what you're focusing on today. Here we go. Oh, I made it a little too big. Now you can't read it. Here we go. Informational texts. Introduce the topic with a focus statement. Develop the topic with evidence, such as facts and details, and end with a concluding section or statement or section. That's what you're focusing on today, this part right here. Okay, that's your job as a peer. Do they have all the parts? Does it make sense? Did they put them in the right order? So you might see, somebody, here, let's look at this paragraph. Let's do some practice of some peer critique right here. All right, I'm going to read you this paragraph, and right now you think about how would you say this so that if this was my work, what would you say to me to help me improve? Now again, we're focusing on the organization today. Are you ready? Here we go. Getting books to children in the desert can be challenging, but Kenyan librarians have found a way to overcome this challenge. Kenya is a country in East Africa. The north part of the country is very dry and is a desert. This part is called Bula Iftin. In Bula Iftin, sand covers the roads, making it hard for cars to drive through. This makes it hard to get books to the people living there. Librarians travel on camels that carry books through the desert to the people living there. The people in Bula Iftin treasure the books that the librarian and the camels bring to them. The camels can walk in the sand in the desert and do not need much water. They can carry heavy loads like books and a tent for the library roof. They're perfect for the job. The librarian comes every 2 weeks to see the children, so that the children can trade their books for new ones. All right, does anybody see anything in there? And I'm hoping somebody at home definitely could see something in there that maybe needs to be reworked a little bit. So we're not focusing, there aren't any misspelled words or anything. My sentences are pretty okay, but there is an organizational problem. Can somebody at home help me figure out what might need to move or how I might need to work on my writing? Anybody at home? I kind of need to, let's see. Miss Lila, do you see some things that need to be worked on?
So, you were reading it a little fast, and it sounded like some words were, like you said that they were perfect, and that I don't see very many periods, and
there aren't any periods missing. So I'm not worried about my fluency at the moment, Miss Lila, but if I was your partner, would you ask me to reread it and read it slower so that you can hear it better? Okay. Now, you're not going to necessarily be seeing each other's screens because we have, and especially in the classroom, we have to maintain our space. On those of you who are remote, you are going to get a chance to share your screen. So you're going to be able to see each other's. But for right now, so this is not quite how it's going to go in the real time. Anybody see anything organizational though, Miss Lila? Is there anything that needs to be moved to perhaps a different place that's not in the right order? Yeah? Okay, go ahead, Miss Lila.
So there's so you have the challenge at the top, and then instead of the focus statement and the geographical features, and then down in the challenge part you have like a focus statement.
Okay, so are things out of order a little bit? Yeah. Do you think some of you might accidentally have done that? Some of that? Possibly. What should have gone first? What do you think, Abby? What should be at the top of my paragraph? What should be at the beginning, do you think? Which part? Oh, all of my capitals are there because we're not worrying about capitals and periods today. We're not focusing on editing. We're just working on revising. Ellie, what do you think? Ah, where's the introduction? What part is the introduction? It should be at the beginning, but where is it right now? It's in the middle. Here's this part about Kenya. Oh, there is a place that needs a capital, right? Here, this part here, Kenya is a country in East Africa, and this whole part right here, that's actually what? That's our introduction. That needs to go at the beginning, doesn't it? So if I were doing that on my Google Doc, I could highlight it and I could move, I could go up to up to edit and move it. I can show you in a minute just to have, we could do that in just a moment. So we can move that around. Anybody else see something that needs to move around? Oh, there are. Mr. Cole? So we need to put the introduction. So if we put that up to the beginning, the part about Kenya, is that better? So the focus statement needs to go move down though, right? Yep, because right now the focus statement's at the beginning. All right. I also noticed my conclusion is not at the end. Where's my conclusion? Remember that sentence that wraps it all up? Where's my conclusion right now? Does anybody see it? It's over here. The people in Bula Iftin, right here, treasure the books that the librarian and the camels bring to them. That should go at the bottom, at the end. That's my sentence that wraps it all up. So should it be in the middle of my paragraph? No. Definitely not. Okay, so today we're worrying about organization. We're saying, do they have all their parts? Do those sentences make sense? And do they, I'm gonna go ahead and escape here. Do the sentences, are they understandable? Because you're gonna have a reader that doesn't know about your country necessarily, although we are gonna work with people from our same country. You have to kind of pretend you don't, and you're not sure exactly what they're saying. All right, so we're going to be using some sticky notes, and I can go ahead and get those passed out for my friends here. My friends at home, you don't need to worry about the sticky notes, but you are going to tell each other in your breakout group. You're going to give each other some feedback so that they can improve. So if I were you, I'd have your EL spiral nearby so you could write down some of the ideas that your friends give you. So if Haley's in a group with Astria, and Astria gives her some feedback, Haley could jot that down real quick. And so when she goes back to her Google Doc and she has time to work on it after she's done giving Astria some feedback, then she won't have forgotten what she was supposed to work on. My friends here, you're gonna get a sticky note so that when your friend goes back to work, you have a sticky note with what to focus on. All right. So let me make sure. I'm going to leave this up for my friends here. We're going to have our peer critique so you can remember what to use. Specific, kind, helpful feedback. That's what we're focused on today. And then hopefully when we get to our learning targets again at the end of the day, we can feel good about how we worked with our partner. Because that's our focus today. Giving kind, helpful, specific feedback to your partner. And being able to take that feedback as well. Because you got to use this time to improve. Okay, so my friends at home, in a moment when I'm done talking, I'm going to hand you over to Mrs. Aubin. And Mrs. Aubin is going to put you in, can you put them in breakout groups? If you'd like to take some, you certainly can. I mean, that's if you think you can handle both things, then you bet. I didn't want to overload you. All right, so Mrs. Aubin is going to take you, my friends. So if you have not already done this, can you pull up on another tab? It was in the instructions to pull up your Google Doc in another tab, but it would be great if you could do that right now while you're waiting for Mrs. Aubin to get you organized in the breakout groups. And I'm going to let Mrs. Aubin be the hostess with the mostest. I know, I'm trying to, if I could get there, I would be awesome. Oh my goodness.